Hello there, YouTube. This is Forced Weaver, your dear cleric, and I'm welcoming you all to our little April Fool's Day thing of where we're gonna be creating a tier list of all the basic meshes from Blender. As you can see, you got them all lined up here. I'm pretty sure in the right order. So we're gonna basically be jokingly categorize them into well, half jokingly really. I will be going into some actual detail on them about which meshes are the most useful to use in your models, or which one is the most easiest one, or have the most use cases. So yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so the first one here is the default cube, the one that you always get when you open up Blender, and that's in the delete always tier. Yes, basically. Oh. Yes. So it's kind of a joke sometimes that you always hear, especially with Blender tutorial videos, how people always open up Blender and then they immediately delete the default cube even though it's perfectly fine, and only just to re-add a cube later on. So yes, you never want to use the default cube. You always got to delete it first and then then do what you're doing. Okay. Next one on to is the grid. Oh wait, not the grid, it's the plane. Whoopsies. I swapped these ones. Okay. Doing live on the fly. It's the plane. And this one's pretty useful. So it's gonna be a staple mesh. You always have a use for a plane. Either be it for starting off a ground or a wall, or even when you're using it to for character topolization, we start with a basic basic plane and extrude out the points and faces and the edges there to create more complex structures. And even then, you can turn the plane into a more solid mass using various modifiers like the shoot, now it's leaving my brain. Solidified one, yes, there it is. So it's very nice and useful, always ready to be used. Now, next one is the regular cube instead of just the default one, and that's also a staple mesh because you can do so much with it, from subdividing it to create a more of a sphere for sculpting, or just extruding it out to do almost anything that you want that's vaguely square or rectangular. And even then, so the cubes are always going to be good. It's even good to use it as when you're rigging and using it as the wireframe of the cube to create a rig controller. So yes, cubes are always very useful. Next one, you can't really see it too much because it's so thin. It's a circle. It's basically a circle of vertices. And I'd say for this one, it's always good to have. You won't be using it everywhere for everything. It can be used to making mesh rig controls, or just having it's just a circle of vertices, and you can shoot it out to become a cylinder or a pipe or anything like that. But yeah, it's nothing too useful, but it's also nothing too bad. Next is the UV sphere here, which is a very high poly count sphere. I would say it's always good to have. You're not always gonna be using always gonna need to have a perfect sphere, out of a select amount of times, and even then that's still pretty rare. It's mainly UV sphere is mainly used for texture work. Yeah, so if you want to put and test out your textures on to see how they look, as well as like using them to like potentially sculpt out like character topology and all that stuff. So I said it's good to have, always good to have, but it's not like something staple you're always going to be going for. Next is the icosphere. And this one is like, say, kind of barely relevant, because icospheres are just like regular UV spheres, but they're a little bit more polygonal, a little bit more low poly, so they don't have as many uses, like as much. I think a lot of icospheres tend to be used if they're trying to go for something a little bit more polygonal, or use it in as a substitute for particle effects. I think most of the time, like little bits of snow would be like icospheres. So it's like very barely relevant. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good one. Next is a cylinder, and this one is a staple mesh as well. You always are going to be using like cylinders, especially when you're coming to like rounder objects like wheels, or like I said, cylinders, as it were. And you can do like a lot of things with it. You can extrude it out, or extrude it outwards, or extrude part of the bits of it inwards to make like a vase or something. Just very good to have, and just nice to have all around. Okay, now here is the cone, and I would say this is, you gotta have the put in a very conscious and effort to use this, because like I can't really think of too many times that you would want to use a cone, because of the nature of it and how it works. Because like the cone only has one vertex on the top there, and compared to like the multiple vertices on the bottom, it's gonna be like the way the edge loops work on it is gonna be really weird. And like the better way to like do something to make a cone that works a little bit better with like meshes and all that stuff would be having a cylinder and just tightening the top bit there, because you can just move the vertices in, and eventually even be able to create a cone by merging all the vertices to one. So yeah, you need to make a conscious effort if you want to use a cone. Okay, the torus. This one's a little bit weird, because it's the item that is kind of, I guess, sort of pretty well known in the Blender community, especially with like if you're following along like the very basic donut tutorial, because that is what they use as the first step, as the first item is the torus. But other than that, like very specific scenarios, I think the torus is kind of barely relevant unless you like need a sort of like perfect ring sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's where it goes. Now we get onto the more, well, hey Charlotte, thank you very much. It's just things that I've just accumulated over the years. Just having some fun here. Hope you're having a fine day, and hope you weren't too fooled out there during April Fool's Day. Okay, as I was saying, next up is the grid. The grid, it's basically I would say it's kind of barely relevant, because like the grid is basically a plane that's subdivided. So you can easily just make a plane, like a grid out of a plane. So I don't think there's really much need to it. But just because like you are generally doing a lot of subdividing a plane into a grid all the time, I'm going to say it's barely relevant. But you're not going to be going into the Blender menu and purposely adding a grid. You'll probably just be adding a plane and then subdividing it. Now, the last one is the monkey. Sort of like pretty common and well known in the Blender as well. This guy has practically no practical effect in like actually making a model, unless you want to just add a random monkey head there. But like the only good thing is to like that the monkey head is used for is basically putting on and testing out your textures on it. So I'm gonna put it right there in conscious effort to use, because as I said, you can just use a UV sphere and just shade that pretty well. Oh. Okay. So yes, that's all pretty nice. Nice little. That's all that I got here. So yeah, this is my nice little tier list for Blender stuff. We got the plane, cube, and cylinder as the S tier staple mesh. Got the circle and the UV sphere is always good to have. Is A, icosphere, torus, and grid are barely relevant. While in the B tier, C tier is the conscious effort to use. It's the cone and the monkey. And then the always delete tier, D tier, is the default cube. Makes it also starts with D too, so that's pretty fun. So yes, I hope you all really enjoyed this cute little like April Fool's joke / explanation of the various meshes in Blender, and I hope you have fun. If you have any other tiers, any like suggestions about tier placements for these items, please let me know in the comments below. Yes, it's always really appreciated when it comes to appeasing the algorithm gods. So yes, if you'd like to see more of this, more videos from me and all that stuff, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!